Hey there, quick heads up before we dive in. If you are loving this podcast and you've even started to take action on some of the tips you're hearing here, this is for you. If you're an established personal stylist and you are struggling with consistent income, unsure how to turn followers into clients, and feeling really burnt out, even though you are not booked out, I have been there and I have worked with dozens of stylists who have been there too. And now I want to work with you. So I created the Six Figure Stylist Income Accelerator. This small group 6-week program is your ticket to mastering the income generating activities that will help you earn more while doing less so you can enjoy summer and continue to see a steady flow of cash in your bank account. I am only taking 10 stylists in this program with 5 VIP spots for extra personalized advice on your marketing, services, and pricing. If you're interested in learning more, join the waitlist through the link in the show notes. Do not miss out. This could truly be a game changer that gets you out of spinning your wheels in your business and into high gear, generating a bigger income and a bigger impact. Welcome to the Six Figure Personal Stylist podcast, the ultimate no BS business podcast for ambitious personal stylists ready to build a 6-figure and beyond personal styling business. You won't hear the typical snooze fest business advice that most personal stylists get told all of the time. Nope, instead I'll be sharing business building strategies that will help you create a killer personal brand, a cult following of loyal personal styling clients, and make a ton of cash while creating lasting style transformations for your clients. I'm Nicole Achi, your host and a former personal stylist of 14 years who built a lucrative styling business in 3 major cities, but only after spending years trying to crack the 6-figure styling business code without burning out. And now I'm here to tell you how to do exactly the same. Let's get into it. I am so delighted to be able to introduce you to one of my incredibly talented clients, Mary Komick. Mary is an LA-based personal stylist who I had the pleasure of working with last year and this year. She came to me at a very interesting point in her career. She had been a stylist for many, many years and had been out on her own for about 3 when we found each other. And what she shares in this episode, but that I also want to share with you to be listening for, is that Mary had really felt like she had done all of the things. She had probably worked, I would guess, and I think she says this in this episode, with just about every coach for personal stylists specifically and other coaches that are out there. But there was something missing, and she was really struggling to get to the next level. And she created incredible results for herself, even amidst dealing with a death in her family, having to manage a family business and grow her personal styling career, among a variety of other things that happened in her life. As you know, life goes on. Just because we hire a coach or we're looking to focus on one part of our life, it doesn't mean the other parts of our life stop. And I want to share that with you. And I want you to listen for that, because no matter what you're going through right now, no matter what you've tried in the past, there is still possibilities. There is still and always will be a road that you haven't tried, a way of restructuring your business and your day and your energy in order to get your results. So do not change your goal. Change the way you're getting to your goal. And that's what we did with Mary. And that's what completely transformed her business. As a matter of fact, after we hung up from this call, she sent me a text message and told me that she had just received, I believe it was 3 inquiries based on so many of the things that we had talked about. She opened up her email box and she had 3 client inquiries waiting for her because her messaging was so strong. I am so proud of Mary for everything that she'd been through and for how she created results despite it. So enjoy this conversation. I think you'll find it very inspiring. Mary, I'm so excited to have you with me. Why don't we kick this conversation off by you sharing a little bit about your history as a stylist before we started working together?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yes. So before we started working together, I had started my own business as a personal stylist for, I would say, about 3 years. And before that, I was doing commercial styling and things of that sort. But in the pandemic, I quit working for other people, started working for myself. So I had been running a styling business for years before we started working together, but I did not have the systems in place that you taught me, the marketing and sales channels, all of those things, which is why I was so excited to work with you, because you taught me things that nobody else was talking about in the styling world.
Well, thank you for that. I'm excited to get into that. But before we do, I want to hear a little bit about sort of what kind of clients you were working with. Like you're in California, so share a little bit about your market and just kind of like what you were dealing with when we started chatting first, because I know you had done a lot of things and your business was, you were busy. Like that was not the issue. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I live in LA, and because I started my business in the pandemic, I had a lot of virtual clients all over the country, but I was also working with clients in person in LA, in Orange County. But they weren't all the same type of client, right? I worked with stay-at-home moms just as much as I worked with female entrepreneurs or executives or online coaches or digital nomads. There wasn't exactly like a true niche to it. I wanted to work with female founders and women that invested in other women, but I took every job that came my way because I wanted to, grow my income instead of really focusing on my ideal client. And I love working virtually. And I think, the time that I've been doing this, I've been able to master it. But working in person was fun too. So that lack of systems led me to kind of stay booked and busy in a sense where I worked with anyone that really came into my world.
So, but that's kind of what all of us do until we stop, right? Because when you start a business, you have to pay the bills. So I think that I'm glad you shared that, because I think it's 9 times out of 10. I mean, you do that until you stop, right?
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about niching. And one of the things I hear the most is people are terrified of it. And you went hard on your niche, and I didn't really have to convince you. So I'd love to hear you share your thoughts on niching. Was it scary? Did you have reservations? Like what did that internally feel like? Because externally working with you, you were all in, but sometimes that's a little bit hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. It wasn't the first time that I had changed my niche and decided to do this. I would say the difference in the way that I approached niching this time was I was very, very clear on why I wanted to work with them outside of the income potential. It was really more of the fact that the women that I work with are investing in other women and funding game-changing businesses. And I felt that that was really impactful to be a part of, as opposed to the niches that I had chosen before, which is, I'm going to be completely transparent. They were more of like a copy of what other women were doing in my field. And instead of, I should have been focusing, on what I wanted, but I spent years thinking they're successful, so I should do the same thing. I should work with the same people. And then when I was actually doing it, when I was in their closets or meeting with them on Zoom, I was like, this isn't working. So when I niched down to female founders and funders and got really clear on why, it made everything so much more effortless in terms of really going all in on that niche.
So this is so interesting, because I think a lot of times, and also just like how not just stylists, but online business owners in general are taught to niche is very like superficial. It's like they have a dog and they're 45 and they make this much money, but they're not really about the psychographics. And what was super interesting about your decision to go all in on female founders and funders was yes, that was like how you would categorize them, like that's what you would title them. But it was really the psychographic of you saying like they invest in themselves and they invest in other women. So it was like this cycle, this very clean life cycle of like a life philosophy really that attracted you. And I think we forget sometimes that that is a niche. Like even if that was the only thing we talked about, like where do we start? Well, you want to work with people that invest in themselves and invest in women in business. There's a lot of ways we could have gotten there. And the fact that you were like, oh, this feels right. Because when you said earlier something that was interesting, you said like it wasn't working. It was working in the sense that you were attracting those clients. but it wasn't working internally for you. So that decision was about standing up for your desire and not just the money in your business. And the way you did it was so graceful and genuine that I think, I'm curious, did it make selling or marketing feel easier to you once you made that shift?
Yes and no. So, for example, a lot of the female founders and some of the angel investors and the venture capitalists that I work with, they're in tech. And that's a completely different language to me. So there was a lot of research that I did. There was a lot of YouTube videos and a ton of books that I read to really understand their language that I could integrate it into my marketing. So that I was nervous about. But I understood very clearly that I was in an unsaturated market for being a personal stylist. And I think as a business owner, there's nothing I love more than tapping into an unsaturated market. So when I saw that and I had it validated both in person when I would go to events and tell people what I did, and they couldn't believe that I existed and they were dumbfounded and excited, both that and, online engagement that I was not seeing prior to making this change, that really solidified for me that it was the right move. So I became less nervous over time, especially as I learned the tech language and the things that they like to say so that they felt more understood by me. But it takes time. I think as a stylist that's been in the game for as long as I have, you kind of just get tired of yourself, of telling yourself that like next time you'll go all in or you'll make a change next quarter, or, this works for now. It's not broken. Why fix it? And I think when you actually make the decision to go all in with the intention that you're making a greater impact that goes beyond personal styling, and it actually has to do with the impact of your own business, it makes that change a lot easier, which is why it looked graceful on the outside.
So much good stuff here. To anyone that's listening, like she talked about research, like that's actually what it takes to make your business feel effortless. Like there's also this idea, like you pick a niche and then you just kind of like add it to your Instagram bio and now you're niche. And, one of the things that I see in the difference between even my clients, the ones that are incredibly successful and the ones that aren't, are the ones that are willing to do the pre-work, basically the foundational work, to figure out the actual inner world of the people they want to work with. Otherwise, you just sound like everyone else. So while everybody is worried, we're having a roundtable call today about marketing, and 9 out of 10 of the questions are like, how do I look different? It's like, you don't focus on you being different. You focus on marketing differently. And that's what you did. And your engagement went up. And it was just like, oh, wow, this really works. So what's fascinating is that you really treated your new kind of clients as like something to study. And as a result, it seemed as though your content, at least from the outside, it definitely got more original. Like that, it didn't just seem, it did get more original. But did it open up a lot more things that you felt like you could talk about that were not the classic stylist, like,
yes,
look good, feel good?
Yes.
I would love to hear you talk about that.
Classic, like look good, feel good. I'm going to make you feel confident every day. The women that I work with, they want to use their personal style as a tool to grow their business and their personal brand. That's very different from women that feel a lack of confidence around their outfits and the way that they're able to put them together in their body image. It's a completely different like psychographic. So the fact that I'm able to speak to the things that I did myself as a female founder and integrate it into my marketing in a way that resonates with my clients, which I was not able to do before because I wasn't working with female founders. And again, I also wasn't working with women that invest in other women like I do now. I'm able to use part of my story in my marketing in ways that they understand. So that was really helpful. And I think the research that I've done, I'm a Capricorn, so I was going to do it regardless. But the research that I did really did help me like speak to them in a way where they were saying to me, like, no one's talking about this. Like, I can't believe you do this. This is so intriguing. I want to learn more. What made you want to work with women like me? I was not receiving questions like that all 3 years of my business before I did this.
That's really interesting. And I think that's the power of shifting to the client, like really focusing your marketing on the client and studying the client, is that they feel so seen and they feel so taken care of before you even work with them that they can't say no. It's sort of like,
Yeah.
wow, you made this for me. Like how, and I see that with stylists too. Like how could you not, right? Because it is so specific and so niche. And that's actually the power of a niche, is that it like opens up things quicker for you, like those conversations. So when you came to me and we chatted on our first discovery call, tell me a little bit about what you were, because you were getting clients, like what were you looking for in working with someone, and what was your sort of expectation of that?
So when I came to you, I was in a place personally where I was grieving, and I was an entrepreneur, and I was trying to balance running my business and grieving, and then also joining a family business and working 2 jobs at the same time, full time, going full speed. But my passion was in personal styling. So what I wanted was systems in place for marketing and sales. I have invested thousands of dollars in other coaching programs that are specifically for personal stylists. And the thing that I was always missing were systems for marketing and sales that specifically applied to my business, how I work with clients, both virtually and in person, and my specific clientele. And I was tired of running the hamster wheel of figuring it out myself when I was ironically telling people and telling my clients, you're your best investment, and you need to invest in yourself, and hiring a stylist is a way to grow your business. Well, on the back end, I'm sitting here like I'm looking at 90 days worth of content that I need to produce, and I don't actually know what's going to move the needle and convert. Right. And I don't know how to speak to this new niche, or I don't know if it's the right road to go down. I don't know what other opportunities outside of online marketing that I'm not integrating, into my daily practice as a business owner. That's all of the things that I learned with you. And that's what was such a game changer. But it was really the lack of systems that I didn't have in place that I didn't learn elsewhere.
So it's interesting because you say systems, and I actually think of you as someone that's really good at systems. So maybe it's more like a framework, because you're actually really good at systems. I think it was probably more the like, what exactly do I say? Right.
Yeah.
Like I always, like not like, how do I like, not like, how do I get a system for like batching? Like you knew how to do that. That's not, just to be clear for other people listening, because she actually knows systems. She probably could teach me systems, but it was the framework I think that was missing. And I hear you, because it was my biggest issue for so many years. It's like, and I think also what's interesting is that I think that the marketing world, the online marketing world, for stylists specifically, but in this conversation, but in general, has changed since COVID. And so I think a lot of the things that we had talked about and the things you were doing were they were like outdated. You didn't know that, but they were, because you started your business on your own when you did, even though you had styling experience, you went on your own during the pandemic. And that's when actually there was a big shift in the market, because people were exhausted of hearing just educational content, and regular people knew that everyone was selling something online. Like it wasn't, everybody knew what a funnel was. Like this wasn't groundbreaking. And so when we worked together, it was a lot about like just updating the understanding that you were given from previous courses, people, whatever, to kind of reflect what was happening now. And you took that and you ran. And I'd love to hear a little bit about what your experience was when did it like click? When did you feel like, okay, I'm using this new framework, system, whatever, and it's, oh, this actually does work, versus like, we'll see, does it work?
So yes, I will correct myself and say that it was a framework. I will tell you the first way that I think that it really clicked is when you really helped me out with like content pillars and being able to plan content ahead of time, whether it's for batching or like individual filming days. The way that I was able to just pour out ideas into that framework, whereas I used to stare at like a blank spreadsheet and like not know what to do with myself, or have tons of other ideas that I wasn't cleaning up because I felt like the more I had, the more I would produce, but that wasn't the case. I was feeling really overwhelmed. So when I had a framework to fall back on that made me feel more confident in my marketing on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, a monthly and a quarterly basis, I felt a heck of a lot more secure in where my business was going. So that was probably the game changer for me, because I always had something to fall back on, rather than I know a lot of stylists and a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to this, waking up every day and saying, what do I post? What do I do? Because yesterday didn't work out, so what the heck do I do? You need that framework to fall back on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think she mentioned content pillars. And I just want to say, like, we definitely do that. But knowing the content pillar types is, I think, that actually makes people buy, is what I think. Because I did content pillars for like 15 years. And I was like, well, no one seems to care about it doesn't just having a content pillar, meaning just having themes. You need themes that relate to in your case, specifically, like, female founders. Like, they're not going to be the same as a stay-at-home mom, sure. But what I think people miss is within that, it's the content types that I think is the game changer. And that, honestly, it's easy for your brain to be like, I don't really want to post this. I don't really want to do that. And then as soon as you see that, like, oh, people actually respond to this type of content, the motivation increases. Because I know I've always had a lot of resistance to, like, content pillars, and like it's like, oh, the same freaking thing, like, so boring. It's so boring.
The content types and diversifying that definitely led to more engagement and more like outbound lead generation, I have to say, because I think before, in the outdated marketing tactics that I was using, I was a little bit authoritarian, which you and I talked about. And I was very much saying, like, this is wrong, you need to do this. And it was education based, and it was not converting whatsoever. But when I, for example, started integrating content types that spoke to, like, the things that they were thinking that they didn't want to say out loud, for example, the things that they wouldn't even say on a sales call, but like, I know that this is their lived experience. That changed the game for sure.
And to your credit, you were willing to do that, because what I see a lot of people afraid of is to say the thing that no one's saying on the sales call or whatever. And because of different ways you can research your ideal clients and different places you can find information on different types of clients, for stylists, you can actually get that information without needing to have the direct conversation. Like, you can use Reddit forums, you can use all kinds of different places to get that. But even when people have it, they get a little nervous. And so you were really, I don't want to say brave, because I think there are definitely braver things you've done in your life. That feels a bit extreme. Like running two businesses while you were grieving is a little bit braver, but you were willing to go there. And I think, that the hesitations, both with people of like, well, I don't want to be different than everybody else. As a stylist, it's like, that's exactly what's killing your business right now. And you went all in. And I just want to be clear on that to people that are listening. Like, if this seems magical, it isn't. She did she did all the work. She was like an A+ student, if there was one. And that's why there was a return on investment. But one of the other things you talked about was diversifying how you were getting clients. I'd love to hear more about that and just what surprised you about that aspect of the process.
This was the thing that I think was the most pleasantly surprising, because I was operating in my business thinking that Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and Pinterest, all the social media platforms, were the only way to acquire clients. I did not have any referral partners. I wasn't connected to any retailers. I wasn't establishing like collaborative partnerships or relationships with other service providers that work with my clientele, right? To bring in leads in a way that was almost passive compared to my other daily marketing activities. So doing that, especially when I was in slow periods of my business, or when I had to transition to longer times in my other business, which is real estate, that was so helpful for me, because it brought in income that otherwise I don't think I would have had. So that's looking like guest experting on online coaches modules or speaking engagements, both in person and online, creating an ability for myself to be kind of on a list of service providers for other female founders to use, or funders in that case, but doing all of these things that I had no idea existed for service providers. It's not something you're going to Google and find.
No.
Okay. I had no idea that this was possible, and it really, really helped me in the slower periods of my business. I told all my friends that were stylists, and they were shaking their heads at me like, what do you mean? Like, we don't do that. Like, you just wait for the client to call you or the email to come in or for Yelp to get you. And I'm like, no. You need to have something running in the back end. It can't just all be social media and SEO. You need to do other things.
I think that surprises people the most when we work together. And I didn't expect that. But I think it's because when I was a stylist, like for a billion years and 1,000 years ago, I mean, up until last year, I never really focused entirely on social media. I really focused as like, you could go to my Instagram or whatever, and I used it as like a mini website, kind of like how I do with others' business. I use it as like a cross check and a place to build relationships. But that philosophy is something I think stylists need to understand. That goes outside of social media. And that, while it sounds like more work, I think, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, I feel like it's the thing, this kind of way of doing it, it's in my head, it's like a 3-pronged method to marketing that I teach. It's actually what gives you control of your business. And I don't think we realize how little control we have. And I don't just mean like the algorithm. I just mean like how icky it feels to only be worrying about social media and building an entire relationship, and this idea of attract marketing being the only way. It's like, it's a passive way of growing a business. And there's no such thing as a successful business that's passive. Even when it's passive income, like you have to run ads, you have to make relationships, you have to do these things. Even if you're making money, quote unquote, when you sleep, that doesn't mean those people aren't working during the day. Like, and I think that like figuring this out and learning both impacts how we use social media, because if you're building relationships outside of social media, you know how to build them inside social media. And business is relationships. And you know that's from real estate. Like, it just doesn't feel like you're in control of your business when it's just about Instagram. And I don't think we realize it till we have alternatives.
Yes. And it gave me a higher variety of touch points for people to figure out who I was and what I do, other than just social media. And I have to say, the other great part of kind of that back end work of establishing relationships that are not online is that I no longer concerned myself with producing content for social media that was the generalized cookie cutter content that every other stylist was doing. So I was focusing more on establishing relationships with referral partners and collaborations that put me in the rooms and in front of the faces of people that would like to hire me, as opposed to saying, should I create a reel today that shows someone how to French tuck a shirt, or what like 3 belts they need for spring. Like, all of that noise went away because I had these other things to rely on. And so many stylists focus on trying to be like everybody else because they see that the market's changing and that attraction marketing and organic marketing is the thing. You have to go for it. Otherwise, you're spending thousands or hundreds on ads and trying to be a passive income maker. And I just don't think as a service provider that that's what people need to be focusing on. But if I hadn't worked with you, I wouldn't know that.
That's really interesting. I never thought of it that way. That's really interesting. I think too, like if it can get you offline a bit, and I mean, even offline, like I sometimes think of LinkedIn as offline because it is a different way of behaving. Like I feel like people have to decide, do you want to be quote unquote popular or do you want to get paid? And that is the thing that people get surprised by, because you can make 6 figures. Like, I don't even think this business has 600 followers on Instagram. Not a problem. Add 6 figures. And I think that's because it's relationship based. It's relevant. It's going deep, not wide. But stylists that are obsessed with what is everybody else doing are really not understanding how much money they're leaving on the table, because other stylists aren't going to pay you. So be popular with stylists where you can have a bank account you're excited about. Those are your options, ladies and men, and the 3 men that are here listening to this, you know?
I always my social media presence hasn't grown exponentially over the years. So there's this wide set assumption from both stylists and other entrepreneurs, just as well as friends and family, that your social media following is a direct reflection of your income. But I always say my follower account has nothing to do with the dollars in my bank account. That's a different thing. And a lot of people don't get that. And when you drop the ruminating and the worrying about something so menial that doesn't actually move your business in any way, does not bring leads through the door, does not put you in front of the faces of people that would like to hire you or can connect you to people that would most likely like to hire you and do so easily, it makes running your styling business so much easier.
It makes running your whole life easier because you're out of that like competitive mindset that you may not even realize you're in. But yeah, it's a wild world, social media. And I think it's even hard for me sometimes to remember that, except that one of the things I really had to focus on in myself is thinking like, this account isn't growing fast enough. These people have bigger audiences. But because I've worked with so many people that have big audiences, way bigger than I ever had as a stylist, and they're making so much less and they're struggling, it's understanding that when you have sales skills, which was a lot of what you're talking about, understanding your client research. People think sales is such a like dirty thing, but it's really just connection. It's the art of being able to connect with people such that they want to buy from you. When you do that, it kind of doesn't matter what platform you're on, whether it's networking, it doesn't really matter how you're going about getting the sale because it feels easy and effortless. And it doesn't, and not always effortless, but it feels a little bit more intuitive to you because you know who you're talking to. And I think when that happens, that's when you can kind of start relaxing about social media because otherwise your brain needs something to focus on. It's like, well, how am I going to make this work? So when you focus and you shift to the things that, you did and having this sort of like 3 ways of going about it, now when your business is slow, which it will be because all businesses get slow sometimes, you know what to do versus like, let me get on Instagram and see what everybody else is doing, right? I mean, we all do it. It's just
I when I fall into that trap, I like to tell myself how much money on my hourly rate, if I had one, am I losing right now by looking at somebody else's reel that has nothing to do with my clientele. Like, what?
Oh my gosh, that is a gem. I hope everybody rewinds the podcast. Listen to that. That is definitely going to be a highlight from this podcast. Oh my gosh. And I'm also going to credit you on the roundtable call later on that one. You freaking genius. I love it. That is so good. That is so good. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I would love to sort of close this out by hearing from you what you're most excited about in your business going forward. We'll say the next year. What are you looking forward to?
I am looking forward to working with female founders and funders in a way that I get to be there for the start of their journey and to the end of their journey. And I get to see my impact grow much larger than personal styling and image and be a part of somebody else's business growth. And that change wouldn't have happened if I didn't get to work with you. It would be much more surface level. And I think being in the space that I am in now, I'm very, very excited about it. I'm extremely excited about some of the opportunities that are coming my way because I went all in on a market that I'm so passionate about and about working with women that I'm so passionate about. Whereas before, it was just about making an income. And because I love shopping and all of those things that stylists will say, it's much more working on a soul level. And I'm very, very excited about where I'm at and where my business is going to go.
I'm so proud of you. You worked so hard. You deserve every single drop of success. And I'm excited to watch all of this unfold in the next year and beyond. So thank you so much for being here, my dear.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm so happy to be in your world. And everyone listening, thanks for listening to my story.
You're the best. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It turns out that social proof is actually pretty important. So if you could help me out, I'd so appreciate it. If you just had a quick free moment and could leave me a rating or review on the podcast app, that would be killer. And even better, if you wanted to share this episode on Instagram and tag me, that would totally make my day. And it would bring so much more awareness to the podcast and would help other stylists just like you who are looking to build lucrative styling business, because the better each of us does, the better all of us do. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll chat with you next time.